Hello, everyone, and welcome to KARE-ing Conversations. I'm your host, Rachel Hill, coming to you today live from Las Vegas at our Senior Living Foresight retreat. Jordan, I know you were just on the road, so it is so nice to see you. How are you?
Great. It's conference season, so like everyone's going everywhere and doing everything, and it's exciting. But it is hard to like do the work while you're out talking about the work.
100%. So I'm coming from like fall, chilly East Coast, and I'm here in Vegas, and I'm like, oh no, summer is still continuing, and I love every minute of it, but still trying to get some work done. And this is why I'm so excited to have this conversation today. And I'll let you intro our guest, but this is work that I'm doing today that does not feel like work. So, Jordan, please introduce our guest. I'm so excited.
Yeah, the work doesn't feel like work. So our guest today is the president and CEO of the Pioneer Network. And I am super excited to talk with Penny because as I've talked about before and is like in the back of my head, I have a degree from the Erickson School of Aging, and I studied aging studies, which I'm a weirdo and a nerd. And like I read about Penny in books for school because the Pioneer Network and talking about culture change, which is what we'll talk about today. When I met her, I was like,
Game changer.
Book. So it's really awesome and a pleasure to bring on our guest, Penny. And there she is.
Oh,
Well, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for that introduction, Jordan.
Oh, of course. So let's just jump into it. Person-centered care, person-centered management, and the parallels between the two. It's things that we've touched on in previous episodes, but it's something you get to really dig deep in now. So tell us about Pioneer Network and culture change movement and where person-centeredness fits in that.
Sure. Well, you know what? The culture change movement now is over 30 years old. You know, there were people that were part of this movement even before Pioneer Network got started 25 years ago. And the way Pioneer Network got started is because a group of about 25 of these folks that were really game changers in the world of long-term care and the world of aging got together and they said, you know what, we need to change this culture of institutional care. Moreover, we need to change the culture and perception of aging in our society. And so really what they believed is that nursing homes are a microcosm of society at large. So they thought that if they could change the institutional nature of long-term care, so we created this nursing home system that was created for the system and not for the people in it. They felt if we could change the culture of that, then we could impact this negative perception of aging. And that's really how Pioneer Network started. It was meant to be a place for like-minded people who believed in the culture change movement to gather, to network, to learn from each other. And so for 25 years, we provided education. We provided that place for networking and convening. And then we've also tried to ensure that the policies related to long-term care support these ideas that we've been educating about.
And what are the values that we're trying to promote in this culture change movement?
Well, it's a great question, Jordan. I'm really proud that, you know, when Pioneer Network started, our founders actually developed this set of 13 values and principles. And the first, I think, is so important. And really, I think it's the foundational value. And that's to know each person. And really, when we talk about the idea of person-centered management and person-centered care, it all revolves around knowing people as individuals and deeply knowing them. You know, I think that one of the overall values of culture change, whether it's from Pioneer Network or the Eden Alternative or the Greenhouse Project, is that everyone wants to be known. We all want to be valued. And that's the first principle. And then the second one, I would say, is equally important, but it builds upon it. Relationships are the building block of a transformed culture. because it is all about relationships. And that's obviously whether we're talking about older adults or residents or team members in senior living.
So Penny, you said a couple things that are really standing out to me. One is how old this culture transformation movement is, first of all, is mind blowing. And then the second thing you bring up is really getting to know someone. I would love to hear from you because I always want our audience to have these valuable takeaways. And I think that is something I really latched onto. So how do you really get to know someone? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I think that one of the things I love about these values is that to me, they apply to life in general. They apply to our personal relationships as well as our professional relationships. So, one of the things that I always say is if we all just take an extra minute or two in the course of a conversation to ask someone a question about themselves, to really, again, get into that deeper knowing, to me, that actually is the first step. So it's pretty easy, but it's really just to try to understand who a person is, what their values are, what their preferences are, what gives them a reason to wake up in the morning. Just those things that sometimes in the course of providing care and support to somebody, we don't really focus on. We focus more on the tasks and not necessarily on the person themselves.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
You know, it's funny is I just finished doing some interview training, and we were talking about understanding the motivations of a candidate in order to find the motivation that fits your like culture. But we have this utilitarian view of motivations where we only want to understand the motivations that actually fit the job. So we want to understand, like for caregivers, do you have the motivation to care? Are you selfless? But we don't take any step further than the motivations that fit what we're looking for. We don't try to understand their personal motivations, their long-term professional motivations, and to see not even if that fits in our culture, but just to see them, as you said, as a person and trying to understand them as a person.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because think about how we get to know people if they move into senior living communities. We want to know about their families. We want to know about their past, what their work experience has been, what kinds of things they were interested in, what their hobbies were. Who their support system is, some of their struggles in life, things like that. We try to get to know people as whole individuals. But as staff members, we don't always do that. And I'm not talking about those things that maybe push the envelope of employment law or anything like that in interviews. But what I'm talking about is exactly what you just said, Jordan, is we want to make sure that they have the skills and the education necessary to do the job. But I think we should also try to understand and get to know who that person is, because they are providing the care and support to the people in our communities that we've sort of been charged with providing that support to and creating that environment. So doesn't it make sense that our employees, our team members, are just as valuable, and I would say even sometimes, at least just as valuable as the residents who live there. We really need to focus on them more.
Absolutely. That's one of the things we've been talking about here these past couple of days in Vegas, Penny. Our team is that, when your frontline staff, when your team, when they feel seen and cared for, they are 100% going to give better care to the residents who we are putting first, right?
That's exactly true. I mean, we probably have all heard sort of in our personal lives or people who say, if my kids are happy, I'm happy. Or we hear partners or spouses say, if my partner's happy, then I'm happy. Well, just think about how we could use that with team members, staff members, and residents. I mean, we want to create an environment that really promotes and supports well-being for everyone. We talk a lot about well-being for residents, but what about this concept of well-being for all? Because what we're really trying to do, I think, and what we should be doing, is creating community. And that includes residents and team members and family members and volunteers and C-suite level folks. It really, we want to create a community where everyone, every person is feeling valued and respected.
After all, they are senior living communities, so maybe they can start acting like communities. I think it's fascinating that we are an industry that cares, but if you look at our stats just on our pay rates for our caregivers, doesn't show much care. If you just look at the work that we're doing as far as bringing opportunities to our caregivers to build a career in CNAs as a CNA and not creating barriers of these barriers to grow. It just seems like it doesn't make sense. It's conflicting values. I mean, we want to be caregivers. We want them to give care, but we don't want them. We don't help them receive care, or we don't give them care.
I think that's a really good way to put it, Jordan, that we don't necessarily give them care. You know, we have now formed a formal alliance with Pioneer Network and the Greenhouse Project. And one of the things the Greenhouse Project talks about a lot is this empowered workforce. And it makes me think about that when you're talking, Jordan, because one of the things I've always thought, it just befuddled me about long-term care and senior living, is that we're hiring people to do some of the most intimate of care and support with other people, with residents. And we're trusting them to do that care and support. Yet we haven't really empowered them. We haven't empowered them sometimes with pay, but we also haven't empowered them to make decisions. We haven't empowered them to be self-directed. We haven't respected or trusted them enough in that sense, yet we're trusting them to provide, like I said, this very intimate care. And you're right, it's a little incongruent. It doesn't align.
Have you ever tried to care for a stranger? And I very much hate the term caregiver, because
Right.
you're a care partner.
Exactly.
Like first of all, you can't care for a person. You're taking away their power. To empower a person is to do with them, to understand their motivations and understand their goals, and you can't do something for them. So, care partner. But have you ever tried to care with or empower someone or work with someone who you do not know? It's impossible. It's impossible to bathe someone, to help someone eat, to just, I mean, talking about basic ADLs, not even, as far as a physical therapist would go in helping someone with their mobility or helping someone reach their physical goals, just ADLs. You can't do that without first of all, knowing their name, hearing their stories. No one is silent while all these things are happening, and this is an intimate moment. So our expectation for them is to understand and get to know the residents that they care with. But, and I mean, it's not even a but, because you can't employ someone without getting to know their intimate motivations. And someone's late to work, they have an excuse. Sorry, I had my kids. Sorry, I've got this going on. It's not even that we aren't hearing them, it's just we're not listening.
Well, I think that's a very good point, because there's such a big difference in that. And I think that all of those things, like the CNA who might be late to work because her child was sick or his car broke down and he didn't have another way to get to work. I mean, all of those things are things that we should care about with our staff and figure out how we can create an environment to support them so that they can support the residents who live in our community. It has to be part of the equation. And I know that wages have been talked about a lot. And I really think that this has to be a multi-pronged approach. I mean, there have to be pay increases, but there has to be a change of culture of how we treat and create environments for people to work in our communities.
It's a simple advice for everyone who is watching this program. Just start listening. Just listen to your residents, listen to your staff, and you will have the best culture around, because your culture will be person directed or person centered, and it won't be about you. It'll be about them.
It's so true. I
And
really think
understanding the human.
Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, I was just saying, and understanding the human element. That's something that I'm really like honing in on as you guys are talking. It's like so much of what this industry is missing is that human element. And Penny, you said it so beautifully. It's like there is more to a person and their life than what they're just showing up to do at their job, right? And understanding this human element of them. But yes, continue, please. This is fantastic.
Well, I was just going to say, I tell this story about a nursing home where I now live in Denver, Colorado. And it was a nursing home that truly was one of those failing homes years ago. It was a place that did not provide great care. So people didn't want to live there. Because of that, people didn't want to work there. And they were probably about 30% full. And so pretty low, especially at that time. And the owners of this home were thinking of selling the home. Instead, they brought in a new management company that really believed in this psychosocial model of care, and almost more importantly, brought in an administrator who was a champion of culture change and person-centered, person-directed care. The first thing that she did when she came into the home was she got to know the people who worked there. She got to understand why they worked there. She also understood deeply who they were and what other contributions or skills or interests they brought to their job. So, for instance, she found out that a physical therapist who worked in the home was also a massage therapist and was willing to give massages not just to the residents, but almost more importantly to the staff. She found out that one of her CNAs was also a yoga instructor. And again, great for the residents who live there, but she was really focused on building up her staff. So she offered free yoga classes to the people who worked there. These employees were just thrilled that they were recognized for who they were, and they began talking. Long story short, in a matter of 5 years, it was a home that ran over 90% Medicaid and was a place that had a waiting list not only for residents to live there, but for people to work there. Now, how unheard of was that? Even, back in like 2010. I mean, that was still unheard of, to have a home where people were waiting on a waiting list to work there. But it was because of how she looked at her team, how she looked at her community. She wanted to ensure that people felt valued and respected, and that this was their home away from home as well.
Wow.
So it can be done. I think that's the message that we need to give to people, that this can be done. And yes, it's an investment. What we've learned in the culture change movement for the last 30 plus years is that change is hard. And I think that we all know that. For a lot of us, change is hard and it's slow. But I think that if we're pretty intentional about changes that we can make, especially on the staff, on the team member side of things, we can change our culture.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm speechless. I don't have anything to say. Penny, how can people learn more about the Pioneer Network, become a Pioneer Network member, learn more about the Greenhouse Project, learn more about Greenhouse Homes, designed by Bill Thomas and all that? If they're like a total noob and happen to like stumble across this thing and it's like, oh, what's this? Where do people go to learn more?
Sure. Well, definitely. We're in the process of actually combining our websites for Pioneer Network and the Greenhouse Project. So I'm going to give you two. PioneerNetwork.net is the place to go for our values, for our principles, but also for a number of free resources about all of the things that we've been talking about. And then I also encourage people to go to thegreenhouseproject.org. The Greenhouse Project not only is responsible for the greenhouse model, so that small house model of nursing home and assisted living care, but we're also creating this entity for cultural transformation no matter the setting. So no matter whether it's a very traditional nursing home setting, no matter whether it's an assisted living community, or whether an organization wants to build a trademark greenhouse home, they can go to the Greenhouse Project for, again, lots of great resources about all of the things that we're talking about. Because like I said, what we're really talking about is that empowered workforce and the idea of well-being for all.
Well, you heard it here, folks. And if you need a brick to hit you upside the head, well, then I don't know how clear this. That is the brick, and it hit you. So there you go. Understand people's stories, and then you will transform your life. I mean, if someone told me, I don't remember where I heard it. I may have read it in a book, but someone said, people don't just help strangers. They help people that they know. They help friends. So like it's conference season. You're out there building your network and you don't actually take time to hear a person's story. That person's not going to help you. They don't know you. But if you actually take time to hang out with them, listen to their story, like it's not just about workforce or it's about resident care. It's about just living and being a person and being a being on this earth. Like treat people as they are people, and the platinum rule, but the platinum rule is even too complex for it. Just sit and listen to someone's story, and you can treat them as their story and their motivations tell you. So there's your brick upside the head. You heard it here. If you're a noob that just happened to stumble across this live stream, thanks for watching. And we'll be here every Wednesday.
Yes, Jordan and I are here every Wednesday. And of course, Penny, I can't let you go. Steve Moran is out here just blowing up our feed today. So Penny, I have to have you have the last word. Right. So Penny,
I don't know how I can top that. But one of the things I really believe is exactly what you said, Jordan. Listen more, talk less, get to know people, hear the stories. And really that to me is the antidote to the isms.
Well,
there you go. That.
Should we just be done? Like, let's just.
I think
what other questions can someone ask that is not that answer is not that? How do we solve world peace? I don't know. Sit, talk less.
Sit, talk less, listen more. I think that would be a great start to that. I think that these things, it transcends the professional. These are things I think that, we all, if we truly want to create community overall in our life, these are the things that we need to do.
As my grandmother used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Grandmother was a smart woman.
Katie is surprised that you're speechless, Jordan.
Very rarely speechless.
Yes, as we come up on time here, I think I want our audience to walk away with how important it is to hear someone's story. Right? Everyone has a story, and I think Jordan, you said that beautifully. So I can't say that better myself. Between what you and Penny have shared, there are so many valuable takeaways. And in closing, I just want to say, speaking of stories, again, Jordan and I will be here every Wednesday, streaming live, telling stories, listening to stories, and we want to make this industry better. So Penny, thank you so, so much for joining us. Thank you for the work that you're doing and words of wisdom. This has been fantastic, and I am so appreciative.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely,
As
guys.
Rachel said, we'll be here every Wednesday. We may not be on time, but we'll be here every Wednesday.
I had too much fun in Vegas, guys. I'm so sorry.
Had to pull her off of the slots.
No, guys, this has been a blast, and I cannot wait. We will be sharing more clips from this episode and Penny's words of wisdom, and it is critical and important work that you are doing, Penny. So, guys, another episode of KARE-ing Conversations in the books. We did it. Penny, you've been a fantastic guest, and again, we will